One is container tag. The first one is container tag. And the second one is the empty tag. Okay, so what is a container tag? A container tag is that tag which has both the starting tag and closing tag. Starting tag it looks like this. Okay, and this is the closing tag. So whenever you are trying to close a tag, you just have to put the forward slash in front of the tag name, and that becomes the closing tag. The empty tags are those tags which does not have the closing tags with it. Only starting tag are present. So that's a so it's an empty tag. When we'll be using the tags in the HTML document, we'll see the example of this container and empty tag. Now, the next thing that you will hear is the attribute. So attributes are basically property that defines something special about the tag or the HTML elements. Okay, the syntax of the attribute is there should be the attribute name, then you have to provide the equals to sign, and in the double quotes you have to write the value of the attribute. Okay, and do remember that whenever you are writing the attribute, it should be in the starting tag only. Okay, you cannot write the attributes in the closing tag. The next and the last thing that you should know is the HTML element. So if I write any text inside this tag, okay, so the starting tag and the elements present in and the content and the closing tag, all these make up an HTML element. Okay, whenever I'm saying HTML element, I mean the tag, the content, and the closing tag. Okay. Now, once you have known what are tag, attributes, and HTML elements, let's see the basic layout of the HTML document. Whenever you are creating an HTML document, every document has a basic layout structure that needs to be present. So just press the exclamation mark, there's an emit abbreviation, press enter, and what you're seeing right now is the basic layout of any HTML document. It starts with the Doctype Declaration, and then all the HTML tags are present after that. So what this and we say this as a boilerplate code. Okay, it's nothing but just a basic layout. So first, let's start with this Doctype Declaration. This Doctype Declaration tells the browser that the document is of HTML type. Okay, if suppose we are going to create an XML document, then instead of HTML here, we would be writing XML, and obviously these syntax would be changed according to the XML. Okay, so that's what this Doctype Declaration tells. After that, we have this HTML attribute, and from here our HTML document starts. It has this lang attribute which specifies that the language which is being used is English. EN is for English. And it's a good practice that you remember the sequence the way the tags are. After HTML, there should be head. Inside head, there should be the meta tags and the title. And then the head should be closed, and then body should start. It's a good practice if you follow the same sequence. Now, inside the head, there is generally metadata and the title. The metadata are nothing. It just gives additional information about your site, and it's very useful if you want to make your site SEO friendly. Okay, all these things that are present inside this metadata or this meta tags, they make your site SEO friendly and responsive somewhat. After that, we have this title, and this is what the first thing that user sees. Whatever you are writing within these title tags, it will appear as your tab title. Okay, if you want to see this, open it with live server. Okay, you see here document is being written, which is the same text that is present inside this title. If I change this to HTML, then that document tab name will also change. Okay, so that was that what title do. After this, we have this body, and everything that you will see on the site will be present inside these body tags. Okay, now let's see some tags. First, let's see the heading tag. It's the most commonly used tag. Now there are 6 levels of heading present in this HTML. H1 is the highest level of heading, and H6 will be the lowest level of heading. Okay. The headings, the text which are written inside the headings will be different from the normal text. Okay, it will be somewhat bolder, and it will leave one line space after the heading is being closed. Okay. And let me write a normal text so you can see the difference between the heading and the normal text. Okay. So you can see this is the normal text, and the text which is provided within the heading tags is bold, and the font size is also increased. All this is done because we have used here the tag the heading tags. Okay. Now, after this, let me write one more thing. Okay. Now, you see there is a one line break after this word, but when you will see it in the browser, there will be no line break after the words. Okay, this is because whatever the line break you are providing here, the browser don't recognize your line breaks as the text simply whichever you are typing here right now. Okay, to tell the browser that after this a line break should be there, you have to use a tag that is called dr tag, which provides line breaks on your site. Okay, now when you see there will be a line break after this word, so you see after this there is a line break. Just maximize it. Okay. Now it's clear. Okay, after this there is a line break. Now, and it does not have a closing tag, so it is an empty tag, and there's all level of headings, all these are container tags. Since it's a container tag, means it should contain something, either the text should be there or any other tag should be there. Okay. Then comes this paragraph tag. Whenever you want to insert a paragraph in your site, you can use these paragraph tags, and it's very helpful as the text whichever you are providing here, it will be treated as a paragraph, and the one line space will be provided before and after these texts. Okay. Okay. You can see there is a one line. You can just by seeing you can differentiate that. Okay, there are 3 paths. It is just enclosed within a paragraph. Okay. Now, after paragraph, there is something that is very useful. That is the div tag. Okay. Whenever you are creating site that is somewhat complex and have large number of pages, all the things whichever you are trying to just put on your website, all those will be enclosed within these div tags. If you want to provide heading, it just basically divides your site into a section. Okay. Whatever you are writing inside these div tags, it will just bind it up inside its container. Okay, you can think of it as a bag where you're putting the things. Now, let me just have this. Okay. If you want to draw a horizontal line on your site, you have this HR tag. Okay. and it's also an empty tag. So whenever you are writing, wherever you are writing HR tag, it will just draw a horizontal rule over your website, as you can see here. So inside this, first I'm going to write this heading. And you can insert paragraphs. When you see it on the site, you can find any difference that, okay, the div tag is used, so what's the difference? It just look the same way. So when you will be using CSS, then you will realize how important this div tag is. Okay, I can just give you an example though by using this inline CSS. Okay, stripe style. Let me give a background color and border. So, now, I think now you can see what this div tag has done. Everything that was written inside the div tag is within these frame and with this creamy background. Okay. And the text that was written outside the div tag is the outside the box. Okay. So if there are multiple, it's a good practice if you just bind up everything inside the these div tags. Okay, and it looks good and in a structured way. There would be, you want to insert some images on your website because you can't be writing the text, only the text. So for that, we have image tag in HTML. Okay. And now we'll see three things at one time. That is the image tag, then we'll see the links, and then button. Okay. First, we'll start with the image tag. Now, to insert an image, we have this image tag in the HTML, and it's an empty tag. You don't have to close this tag. Now, to insert an image, you have to provide the source of the file or the image where it's located. Okay. To provide the source of the file, we have an attribute that is known as src attribute. Okay, that is source, and you have to write the file source here. Okay, if the image is on the current folder with where you are working. For example, I am inside this training folder and I have this image here. Okay. Then all you have to do is simply just write the name of the image file. Okay, I write this bird.jpg. Okay, and the image will be inserted. Now you can see here. It's very big, so I think here's the image. And apart from this source attribute, we have something called height and width attribute too. Okay, you can change the size of the image in the CSS also and the tag where you are using it. It's a good practice if you change it in CSS, but for now I'm changing it in this tag only. Just change the height to, let's say, 450 view height. Okay, view height is the similar kind of relative unit of measurement. If you use pixels, but you can use view height too. And similarly for width, let's provide the width of 200. View width. Okay. I think now you can see the image. So it was the most simple way of inserting the image if you have this image on your project folder itself. If you want to insert an image that is present on somewhere on the internet, and you don't want to download the image and then put it on your work folder, then all you have to do is just search for any image. Choose one image and copy the link address. Go back to your file, and in the source, provide that link address. Okay. It's not being loaded, maybe because of the network issues. So if your image does not load, then to provide an alternative text, what the image was about or what has happened, image tag has an attribute known as alt attribute. Okay. Now in this alt attribute, what you have to do is that you just have to provide the text. Suppose it was an image of okay, it's an image. So you can just write image of, or just write image icon. And you can see the text for the alternative text, which in the absence of image will be displayed on your site. Okay. So that was the use of the alternative text. And the last way by which you can, the last way by which you can insert the image source is that suppose you have image inside your work folder, you have created a folder for images, and you are putting all your images which you are going to use on your site inside that folder. Okay, suppose inside this image folder there are images which you will be using on your site. So what you have to do is that in the source attribute, you have to write the folder name first in which your images are present, and then provide a forward slash. Okay. By providing forward slash, it means that we have entered the image folder, and after this you have to write the name of that image. Okay. Let's go to the GPG. It's also not being rendered. Provide a okay. Now, if you want to insert links on your website, we have an anchor tag for that. And whatever the things you are going to write inside this, between these anchor tags, it will be treated as a link. Sorry, it's a link. Now, if it's just a normal text, it's not a link. So the reason is just by writing an anchor tag, it does not make it a link. You have to provide a source where it's referring to. Okay, these texts are referring to where when the user clicks on this, where it should be redirected. So for that, you have to use the href attribute, and inside this href attribute, you have to write the site address or whatever, wherever you want this to be directed. Okay, that's a link, and it's being redirected to Google. Now, it's not a good practice that whenever the user clicks on your link, it will just what to say, it won't open in the next tab. Okay? It will just open on the current tab where your site was, and it's kind of not good, because every time when the user wants to go back to your site, he or she has to click this back button and then click on the link again. So it's a very tedious task. To make it very simple, we have another attribute that is known as target attribute. Okay? And once you provide the target blank, do remember that you have to provide underscore before writing the blank. And now when you will click on the link, it will open in another tab. Okay, and it's opening on another tab. So that's what links and the attributes that are most commonly used for this anchor tag. Now, the last thing which we'll be discussing for this section is the buttons. When you want to insert a button on your site, we have this button tag too. And the text which you will be writing in between these button tags will be showing inside the button on your site. So right clicking, let's provide a line. You see, the button is there. It's not working because I haven't set anything for that. So I think now you know how to insert image, link, buttons, paragraph, divs, all those things. Now, after knowing this, there may be certain cases where you want to insert tables, multimedias, and forms. So all these have tags. Each one have tag for that. Suppose if you want to insert a table, okay, so we have this table tag for inserting the table, and it's a container tag. Now there are two ways by which you can create table on your site. First is just use this table tag and then start inserting the rows and values. And the other one is a very proper structure. You have to define that a proper table header, then table body, then table foot. And inside the table body, you have to insert the rows and that their values. So first I'm going to create a simple table without following a proper structure, and we will see where we have to use both the methods. Okay, suppose if you have to insert a very small table, okay, and it's a very simple one, so you can just ignore all those table bodies and whatever, and then you will just use this tr tag, which will insert rows on your table. Okay? And do remember that you have tag for inserting rows in the table, but you don't have any tag to insert columns in the table. Okay, the data that you will be providing inside this tr tag will be treated as a column. So let me show you. So I write table head. Okay, so see, there are two ways by which you can insert the data. Either you use th or td. So basically we use td for inserting the table data, and th whenever we want to provide the heading for the table. Okay, whatever the text that you will be writing inside this th will be center aligned and bold, and the text that you will be writing inside the td tag will be a normal text and it will be left aligned. Okay, we use th for providing the headers for the table, or you can say providing the column names. Okay, let me show you something. Let's write create a column for name. And then class. Oops. Okay. Now when you see on your side, these three columns are being made on your side. If you want to insert values, you have to create another row. Okay. We have used one tr tag, and inside this we have inserted three values. Okay, so there is one row, and inside this row there are three values, that is name, class, and course. Now I want to insert the value for each of these headings. Okay, so I'll have to use this tr tag again. So I'm creating the second row, and I have to provide the values for this table. So it will follow the same analogy. First I have written name, so the first value that should be entered will be the name. Okay. After this we have used this class header. Then the next value that should be inserted after the name will be the class. Let's write anything. And after this, the last one is the course, so we will be writing the course. Now, the first value has been inserted. Okay. You can insert similar values. Just save the time and just copy and paste it. Now a table is there with three entries. It has 4 rows but 3 entries, and the first row is for the table header. It was one way by which you can create a table, and it's perfectly fine to use this if your table is very short. It does not have to spread onto multiple pages. Okay. Now the second way by which you can use this table is by following a proper structure. In this structure, what you have to do is, first, whenever you want to create a table, you have to use this table tag. Now, inside this table, we are just organizing the things in a proper manner. Okay? So first, after the table, we will have the table head. So for this, we have head. Now, inside this T head, we will be providing the headers for the table, which I have just written casually inside this TR. You have to write this within these T head tags. Okay. TR. Say it's price. Now you see the second table with the 3 columns. Now, once you have provided the headers for your table, what you have to do Okay. Now, after once you have provided the header for your table, you have to create the table body. So for table body, we have T body tag. Okay. And now inside this T body, you have to insert the values of the table. Okay. For inserting the values, first we have to create the row, and inside this row we have to insert the table data. Okay. For inserting the table data, we have TD. For table headings, we have TH. Okay. Now, the first was the product name. So I'm using a sample text for this. Okay. Okay. Now we have entered the name, then whatever we're going to insert the ID. Then the price. Let's say differentiated restaurant. Okay. So the first data has been inserted inside your table. Just whenever you are going to insert values, you have to repeat the same steps again and again, but it should be inside this T body tag. Okay, do remember that. Don't start inserting the values after closure of the T body tag. Okay, let's end this. If you want to provide if you want to see what actually these are doing, first let's create the footer, then we will see what I was talking about. To provide footer, we have this T foot tag. Okay, and with this we are saying that we are ending the table, or it's the last thing that a table should have. Okay, and inside this have this TD. Let's say sum. Another TD where the sum will appear. Now let's see what has happened. See, the sum is 400. There are two things that you will be that's usually used when you're creating a table, that is call span and the row span. Okay, call span, it just merges two columns. Row span, it merges two rows and create a one single cell. Okay, so let's provide a border here so you can see how this merging is going to happen. See, now if I provide call span and I'm giving it as 2. You see what has happened. If you are able to see it, if there was no call span, see, it was taking its a single cell, that is this product name cell, till where this column extends. Okay. Once I'm giving it a call span of value 2, what it's doing is that it's merging two columns. That is, it has merged product name column and the ID name column. Okay, and it's showing us a single as a single cell. That was called span headers. Similarly, you can try for row span and try to do the nesting of tables. Okay, it will be very helpful if you try it on your own. How to nest the two tables. Nesting, I hope you all know that you want to create table inside the tables. Okay, it will be a kind of homework. Just try it out. Okay. So and when we have to use this proper structured table is that when you have a very large table, okay, and it's been expanded between the two pages, or suppose you want to print this table and it's very large. So this structured way of creating table will be very helpful, as once you are providing the values inside this t foot, that is footer of the table, and the t head, that is the head of the table, this will be present on the first and the last page. So it becomes very handful if you use this structured way of creating table, or when your table is very large. Okay. Now, after table, let's see how to create form in the HTML document. We're going to see these forms. Okay. To create a form, we have this form tab. I think by now you should be able to realize how easy these tags are. Okay. Just have to remember the names. You want to create form, just use form. You want to create table, just use table. It's very easy. Now inside the form, we generally use two kind of tags. Okay, the first tag will be the label tag, and the second one will be the input tag. The label is container element, whereas the input is empty element or empty tag. Now, in the label, what we do is that we provide the text which should be appearing on your form. Suppose I want to take I want to take the input for name from the user. So you see the input, the text which was provided in the label is appearing here, and you want to take input, you have to just write it inside this. Okay, and inside this input we have something called type. Okay, it specifies that what type of input you are trying to get from the user. If you use text, and then this checkbox will this input box will take whatever you are going to write inside that input box, it will be treated as a text. Okay, now there are certain attributes that are very important whenever you are creating a form and linking it to the backend. Okay, so first let's start with the form tag. Now the form tag, the first attribute that is a must that should have been in this form tag is this action attribute. Okay, now action attribute specifies where you want to send the form data. Okay, suppose if I have linked this page with the backend and I have something called form.php where my data should be stored. So what you have to write is you just have to provide the source of the file where you want to send this data. I want to send this data to this file, so I have provided the name of the file here. Okay. Now the another thing is the method, how you want to send the form data. Okay, there are two methods for sending the form data, that is get method and the post method. Okay, if you are using get method, for sending your form data, what it does is that it sends your form data in the form of URL, okay? And whatever the data you have provided in the form, it will be visible inside that URL in the form of name value pair, okay? And it's really not recommended to use this get method, because if your form contains a sensitive data, then your data will be visible inside this URL, okay? And your it will be a violation of that. So it's not recommended to use that. But if it's a general form and you don't have to deal with the security issues of the data being provided, then you can use this get method, okay? And since it sends the form data in the form of URL, we have a word limit, we have this character limit, okay? It's for something around 2000 something. So if your form data exceeds more than 2048 characters, then your data won't be sent, okay? Now, after this get method, we have post method. Okay. Now, it's the most commonly used method, and everyone I think uses it. The post method, how it sends the data is that it sends it in the form of an HTTP request. Okay. And the data which are being provided in the form is not visible to the user. So if your form contains a sensitive data, then you can use this post method. Okay. Now let's come to the label. Okay. Label has an attribute known as for attribute. Okay. In the for attribute, what you're going to provide is the ID of the input element. Okay. See here. I have created this name, and in front of this, there is this input box. I want to link this input box to this label. Okay. So to link this, we use ID and for. In the input, we will provide the ID, let's say NM, and the same ID which you have provided in the input will take the value for the for attribute in the label. Okay. So, NM. By writing this, you have linked this name label with this input text. Okay. There are more. If you want to insert checkboxes or radio buttons on your form, or email ID, you want to take email ID from the users, all you have to do is just create a label, right, for and inside this, then use input, and in the type attribute of the input, you have to write email. Okay. Now let's save it. See, if you click on here, it will take the input in the form of email. Okay. If you want to insert radio buttons and checkboxes, you can do so. You just have to change the type to the radio. Let me show you. Use input, and this type equals to. You can see there are options. Okay, I want to use checkbox, so use this checkbox and provide the label JavaScript. You see a checkbox has been created for this JavaScript. Okay. Do remember that you should link the label with the input text properly. Okay. Provide this for LC, and in the input you have to provide the ID, that is LNG. Now this input box is linked with this label. Okay. These two attributes you should keep in mind for label for, and whenever you are creating input tag, you should have this type attribute ID, and the most important thing that your input tag should have is the name attribute. If you don't use the name attribute, then your form data wouldn't be sent. Okay, it's just an empty form, you can say. It won't send your data to the desired place where you want it to be sent. So in the name, you just have to provide any name. So I'm giving it as email. And once you have linked it with the backend, you will see how handy this name attribute of this input field is. Okay, and every input should have this a name attribute. So whether you are linking it with the backend or not, just keep it in practice to write this name attribute inside this input tag. Okay. So these were things that you should remember whenever you are creating the forms, and use the method wisely, whether you want to use a post method or a get method. Okay. Now, if you want to have a radio button, you can just change this checkbox to radio, and the radio button will be used. So that was all about form. If suppose I'm giving it ID as form 1. Okay. Now, if there are field which is present outside this form, let's give phone number. Okay. And I'm taking the input. Type as number. Now, I have created this label tag outside the form tag. Okay. But what I want is that whenever the user enters the phone number, the data of this phone number should be sent to this form only. Okay. So we can do so with the help of the form attribute. Okay. In the form attribute, what you have to write is just type the ID of the form. Okay, I have this form 1. So now when the user will enter the phone number, that data will be linked with this form and will be sent to your desired place. Okay. It's also very useful, this form ID, if you want multiple data to be sent on a single form. Okay. After this, we have this multimedia attributes. Okay. Now, if you want to insert videos and audio on your file, use video and audio tag. Okay. Suppose first I'm going to use this audio tag. Okay. Now, you have created an audio tag. Now, inside this audio tag, you have to use the source tag. And in the source, you have to provide the source of your sound file. Okay. Suppose I have this sound file m.mp3. Okay. So I'm going to just write m.mp3. The audio, you can set the height and width. So just set height to 20. and width as 120. So, and just write this control attribute. Okay, this control attribute is present in both the audio tag as well as in the video tag. Okay, so let's say if there is, okay, here it is, the audio tag, and it's not included. Just we have to say one more thing. There is a type attribute inside this source tag where you have to write what kind of file it is, its audio file, and what is the extension of this file. So it's an MP3 file. So for 3, I can write MP3. And you can provide a text here too. Say audio tag available. Okay. So the text which you are going to write inside this audio tag, it will be visible on your browser only when the browser does not support the audio tag. Okay, if the browser is supporting the audio tag, then it's perfectly fine. For creating the video, it's very similar. You just have to use this video tag. Inside the video, you have to you have to provide the same things. You have to provide the controls. And then the source. And inside the source, you have to provide the source of the video file. It's so it's fine. You can set height and width of this tab too. See the video, you can change the height and width here. Change height 320% and width. Okay, it's this video tab. That's how you're going to insert audios and videos. And there's a last thing, something which is very common, that is iframe tag in HTML. So if you want to display a part of YouTube on your website or on your on your website, so you can just use this iframe tag. Okay, and inside this iframe tag, you have to provide the source. You can provide any source for any YouTube video link. Just put it here, and it will display on your whatever the site is. So that was all about. Let's just type something. I think that's all about this HTML. You can. There's one thing that you should do is that whatever you have done, you can just try something beyond it. What I have taught you right now is just the basics of the HTML. How you want to explore and whatever you can do in the HTML, you just have to just try it out. Do the nesting for the HTML element. Try to add something or just try it out. It all depends on you, the how much you practice. And regarding the names of the tags and the attributes, it will be clear once you start using it very frequently.